And we're live. Hi, everybody. You know the drill. I'm going to sit here and drink water until I start seeing people pop up. Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome. Welcome to today is Wednesday, May something or other, 21st? That sounds about right. Welcome to the latest edition of Geek Speaks Greek. My name is George. I'm the geek. I'm actually speaking English, but I'm speaking about things Greek, specifically Greek mythology. This is a live cast, we'll call it, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I do a little bit of lecture and a little bit of drawing about a specific goddess, god, hero, or monster from Greek mythology, or sometimes, as is this week, a group of goddesses. Because this is Groups of Goddesses Week. On Monday, we did the often conflated, including by yours truly, the Fates and the Furies, or as the Greeks would more likely have called them, the Moirae and the Erenes. Probably one of the most rambly episodes, because I was spending a lot of time justifying my decision to combine these two goddesses in a way, and there was a lot of discussion about whether, in fact, I had combined them, or if they were just different, and it's been really fascinating seeing what people wrote in. But before I get to that, let's just talk. This is funny, all right? So, I don't know if you could tell, I'm on a slightly different setup here. My girlfriend has recently gotten this, fancy, stand to put your light on, and, check this out. It's got, this light. Look, Now, I was going to use this, but first off, it makes these crazy circles in my glasses. I could take off my glasses, but do you really need to see glamour, George? I mean, the show's called Geek Speaks Greek, not Handsome Hunk Speaks Greek. And if it was called Handsome Hunk Speaks Greek, we need another guy to do it entirely. I'm just going to turn the light off, but it is nice to have that option, maybe for dramatic moments. Also, before we get into it, if you've been hanging around my Instagram, you've probably seen me wearing the shirt yesterday. I put it on for some moments yesterday. This is a t-shirt that I designed to help out my local independent bookstore, Word Books. If you've been watching us since the beginning, you know that I actually started Geek Speaks Greek on the Words Instagram. It was designed to help Word. A lot of small businesses, Word bookstores being one of them, have really been hit hard by what's going on in the world right now. So I designed this shirt so that people can, purchase it, and benefits go not only to help Word themselves. Nothing goes to me. But you could go to Word's bookstore, it's wordbookstores.com, or to their Instagram. You could purchase this shirt. Proceeds go to help out Word themselves, and also to help out a group called Think Bink, I think it's called, which is a charity that is designed to help booksellers who aren't able to work in this time. So it's kind of a cool thing. See a lot of people saying hi and stuff, so I'm just going to say hi. It goes by so fast at the beginning that, and I'm also so concentrating on, just blabbing, that a lot of times I miss these things, and I feel bad later on. I'm like, I didn't really say anything to those people. So if you've never seen Geek Speaks Greek before, it always starts off with me blabbing like this, and after enough people show up, and it looks like there are, then I share artwork. This is not artwork that I drew. This is artwork that you, the viewers, have drawn. And I'm always amazed at, the amount of people who take the time and to send in their artwork, and also the incredible quality of this artwork. And how I've been able to see people who started off being pretty good and now they've gotten better because they're drawing almost every day. So, this one is from Moira. Moira has written to us before. Moira was very excited because her name is derived from the Moirae, the Fates. So she actually drew this pretty. I don't think this is a drawing. I think this is a full-on painting. This moody, atmospheric drawing of the Fates, the Moirae, and how cool is that, right? Also, she named this one. I'm going to give it. It's called The Fates of George the Farmer. Now, that's a reference. My name is actually George, not the O'Connor. O'Connor's definitely Irish. George is a Greek name, and it means tiller of the earth. You can actually see G-E, that means Gaia. That's actually a root of that. So my name means farmer. It's kind of not as exciting. Moira's name means fate, so she got a real kick out of that. And so my fates are, they're measuring out my lifespan. I hope there's a lot of extra string there. I'm not ready to kick off just yet. Let's see what else we got here. This is from Elia. She's drawn a lot of stuff for us, and she has drawn also her own version of the three Moirae, the Fates. And we can see there's Clothos. Right there at the end here is Lachesis, and then here's Atropos in the middle, cut in someone's life. It looks like a little short here. There was a funny note from this one that, by the way, when my brother reads to her at night, he always comes out, this is speaking to Ilia, he always comes out laughing and saying that he's had mythology college professors more forgiving of pronunciation than Ilia. She's very precise thanks to your videos. To which I'm like, my gosh, Ilia, I mispronounce things all the time. I mean, I changed the way I remember the episode where, oh man, who was it? I just decided up front, I'm like, I'm going to say the name different every time. Sometimes as I say Hera, sometimes I say Hera, and then people are like, why are you saying Hera, Hedda? But I'm glad you're working. I'm still working my pronunciation, and I'm sure a native Greek speaker is like, this guy is just butchering my language. Because, I probably am. These are some drawings of, but these are by, now this is really super interesting. This is by Eleanor. Eleanor's one of those people I mentioned, like you've seen her work. I've always really admired the energy and the boldness of Eleanor's stuff. And when I presented it, I kind of did like the Fates and the Furies, as they're the same. If you look at my books, they have very similar character designs. Some might say identical character designs. In fact, the really only difference is posture. So here she has drawn the Fates. You can see by the different spinning instruments. But then she also drew a separate picture of the Furies. And what you can see, like the Furies, they've got a bit more monochromatic. The Fates are very brightly colored. Also the Fates, look, out in the open. There's up in the sky, there's Helios. The Furies, as we talked, there may be the same goddesses. There may be just dark reflections that are relegated in the underworld. Like you can see the stalactites and the stalagmites. I never learned which is which. And they're underground, and they have their wings because they use their wings to pursue those who've been wicked, to seek revenge upon them. Eleanor, that's really great too. This is one. This is by, get ready. This is great. This is by a gentleman named Matt. He drew his own version of the Olympians. And that's like everybody. There's a little bit of nudity there, but you're gonna see it quick. I'll just put my finger in front of it. So if you want, screenshot it. It's a really amazing piece. It's like a full painting too. And like all the designs are so well thought out. He'd sent this to me previously, and I was able to guess every single character, which I think was really kind of cool. It's one of those things I love. Like, there's just attributes to look for in these gods. Let's see. Here we have, this is the brother-sister team of Nora and Drake. They send in stuff almost every single episode, which is super exciting. This is, if I could guess by the style, this looks like Drake. Looks like he drew one of the Fates, or perhaps one of the Furies. In fact, this is such a foreboding picture, and the way the color crowds in around it, I'm going to say this is one of the Furies. Almost kind of looks like, I'm just going to say, kind of like a Hestia, like if she was wearing a robe over her fire, right? Because I often draw Hestia sitting like in the cross-legged position. There's that orange glow. Beautiful job, Drake. And then here, by Nora, we have, there's the More, the Fury, the Fates, measuring out someone's lifespan. Very popular theme to draw them. That's really the only way to draw them. What else are they going to be doing? And then, oh wait, this isn't, who are these? And I'm not sure who these are, but this is a kind of cool. Oh, I know exactly what this is. This is another interpretation of the idea of the Moire. And I mentioned offhand how sometimes you see the representation of the three stages, like ages of women. So here we have Maiden. See, she's all young and running like her hair is flying. Woo! And then we have the mother. You could tell she's a mother because she's got the baby bump. And there we have the crone because she's old and has the cane. I'm not sure who that is. That's like another stage, like the super young baby. Maybe that's like it's showing that it's all cyclical and coming over again. I don't know. That's really cool. Thanks, Nora. Like, I love these different interpretations. Okay, now this one. If you watch from the beginning, you know that a lot of times we would get mail from a young gentleman named Shiloh. And Shiloh's mail often consisted of him performing dances. Like, he was actually showed videos of him dancing and singing the praises of the gods and goddesses. We haven't heard from Shiloh as much recently because Shiloh, sometimes this time that I do this live doesn't work out for people. Shiloh has switched over to primarily being a watcher of them on YouTube. Oh! It's a good time for me to say, if you've ever missed an episode and want an episode again, you could go catch it on my YouTube station, youtube.com/user/GeorgeOlympians. So I haven't gotten as much stuff from Shiloh, which is kind of sad. But boy, did Shiloh make up for it today. Shiloh, as it turns out, huge fan of the Moire, the Fates. So, okay, I'm going to have to pan this. It's such a big picture. This is a Photoshop recreation of Shiloh as all three. How cool is this, right? Look, there he is. He's holding the spindle. There he is, measuring out the span of life. I'm glad to see it's doubled up a few times. Whoever this is getting a nice long life, unless they're a bad person. And there, cutting the final thread. Look how great that is. That's one of the coolest things I think I've gotten here. I'm gonna get permission. I want to post that one up on my Instagram because that is just fun. Okay. Now, Yehi is somebody else who is like amazingly prolific. She lives in Korea. She is this incredible artist, like professional quality artist. Like I expect to fully see. I actually have no idea how old she is, but I fully expect to see her doing comics like as a living, or at least for fun. Maybe not want to do comics. It's a lot of work. We have two beautiful pieces from her today. Here we have an image of, you could tell by the poses, by the scariness, by the way that the stars are literally bleeding into this in the dark colors. This is the Erenes, the Furies. They're like climbing, like reptiles. Like I said, I kind of base their postures on lizards when I do them to kind of capture that snake-like quality. Terrifying. Like if you saw that in your house, you would like lose it forever. You'd be like, ah. And then this one, I know a lot of times, he sends comics, and I don't like to read comics out loud because you kind of missed it, but I have to share some of the bits here. So this is Olympus Fashion Week. Up front, you can see Hera face palming, which I really love because I think I draw her doing that a lot. She has a lot to put up with. So, and this ties into a lot of the conversations we've had on here. Zeus is going, what's the point of shoes? Because I try to draw the primordial gods not drawing shoes, although we discovered I've been accidentally drawing Demeter with shoes. Whoops. And then so Zeus doesn't wear shoes, right? Dionysus next to him is saying, what's the point of fabric? Because he just wears a leopard skin. And then Hestia next to him is like, what's the point of clothing? Because, I mean, you think about it, Hestia's naked. She's just on fire. And then there's this little tiny Pan who's behind that. He's going, way to go, Auntie. Like, yeah, you be naked. That's cool. And then there's Demeter in the background throwing away her shoes, being like, yeah, Zeus has a point, which I'm like, yep, should have had that. And then Athena, as the goddess of weaving, is really bummed out. She's like, wait, you don't understand. These are nice fabrics. I spent a lot of time doing this. In the background, we see different gods trying on different helmets. And what's pretty adorable is an Aphrodite putting a horned helmet on Hephaestus and being like, oh, you look like Thor. And he's like, who's Thor? For those of you who don't know, I'm doing an Asgardian series after this, so I'll be doing a Thor. He's not going to have a horned helmet, though, I don't think. I don't know. And up front, there's just Hera being like, why am I related to these people? This is one of my favorites. That's so funny. Thank you so much, Yehi. Let's just do one or two more, huh? I don't mind going a little long today because I don't mind telling you the lecture might go a little short today. We'll see that in a little bit. This one I was really excited to see. This one, unfortunately, this one is from Little Cereal. No idea what the real name is. Maybe it is Little Cereal. Sirius, like that's Ceres. That's the Roman name of Demeter. Maybe we're talking to Persephone herself. Look how awesome. Okay, so is it the Furies? Is it the Erenes? Is it the Moirae and is it the Erenes? The Furies, the Fates. There's something a little sinister about the way they're kind of hunched in, right? And like the smiles are maybe, there's only really the one smile that's too wide. So it could go either way, and I really like that. They're saying, speak, demand, we'll answer. And that also works for anyone. So I'm like, wow, way to go, Little Cereal. And then, let's see, there was one other drawing for them. Little Cereal's pictures, like, first, they just show up enormous, so it takes me a while to pull them up. I don't know. This is funny. This one is not nearly as finished, but that's okay, because, like, some of my favorite drawings are pencil drawings. Helmet hair, it says. This is, I think I've made jokes about this before. Like, Athena clearly is not interested in beauty because she wears a helmet all day, so she has mad helmet hair. This is Athena and Hermes, both of their helmets off, just kind of being like they got messy hair. My hair doesn't look too bad today. I thought it was messy. I was like me. But yeah, it makes sense, right? Although as shape-changing gods and goddesses, they could just make their, hair probably pop into place. And finally, last thing we have is from Megan. Megan, who also sends in stuff an awful lot. Two pieces from her. This is she's been actually asking me if I will do Io, the princess turned into cow, and I'm like, I honestly haven't thought of it, but maybe I will. And here she has a little comic she's drawn of a drunken Dionysus showing up. This ties into my book Hermes, where there's a traveler who comes with his pet dog, and he is talking to Argus Panoptis and trading stories about Hermes in order for hospitality. And the dog is kind of like, buzz off, you're going to ruin it. I don't want to give surprise. There's a little bit of surprise in the book. I don't want to give spoilers, but it's a kind of, that's a cute little takeoff on that. And then this one I really had to share because this is going to tie into one of the people we talk about today. So this is Aglaia, one of the Charites. And here she is. You can see that she's looking at Hephaestus, and there's a lot of little hearts in the air. And up here, there's Ares looking at Aphrodite, giving a lot of hearts up in the air. He's giving her flowers. And Aphrodite is kind of, if you can see, she's kind of side-eyeing this. She's actually like a little jealous, which I know people have speculated on. Like, how does she feel about the fact that her attendant goes on to marry Hephaestus, jumping ahead. And Hephaestus is getting a kiss and looking happy. So, I don't know. This was a fun group of stuff today, everybody. If you are inspired by anything you see here or by anything you see elsewhere and want to send me in some of your drawings, please send it to me at my, I have to back up, my email. It's georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. And I'll always be happy to see like this artwork. I can't actually express to you how happy it makes me see this stuff. And some of the takes that you guys have come up with on these different characters, be they based on my designs or not, I just love it. It brings me joy. I just flip open several times a day. I'll check my email account just to see what sort of artworks come in. I'm always like, it's delightful. So, okay. That's a lot of stuff, a lot of showing artwork, but it's okay because today, I'm continuousing groups of I'm continuing groups of goddesses week. So you can see we covered the Erinys and the Moirae on the first day, right? This day, I wanted to come and do the Charites, the goddesses of beauty and grace and adornment, right? Part of the reason I did this, if you've ever seen my Olympians poster, like they're on the poster. In fact, I'm trying to continue every single god that's up there, and I think I've covered everybody. Did I do Hebe? I maybe have to do Hebe. I haven't done Dionysus yet, which is like the biggest one, because I'm working on his book. Like, I literally, in the next room are just pages of pencils of me drawing pages of Dionysus's book. He's the big guy missing. Oh, and Eros. I really haven't done Eros yet either. So I might have to do a week where I finish up the last few gods and goddesses, but I wanted to get the Charites because they're there, and they're in their very familiar role. They are the attendants of Aphrodite. And like I said, they are the goddesses of beauty and grace and adornment. I'll get into that. In fact, they're so personified of grace that their Roman name, they're called the Graces. Actually, they're called the Gratiae, but saying that bad, Gratiae, but we kind of anglicize that as the Graces. So their names literally mean grace, which is the things that they epitomize, right? And depending on the source, there are a lot, or there's just 3. I'm pretty much sticking to 3, but I will be talking about the other ones. In my books, the biggest role they play, they might be making cameos elsewhere, they play a fairly big role as the narrator of my book Aphrodite. And here's the 3 of them there. They're all very beautiful. They're all very fun to draw. Their names, I'll just point actually, because I was going to draw a picture and go really block it down. Aglaia, Euphrosyne, and Thalia, or Thalia, depending how you want to pronounce it. Now, if you look at ancient depictions, I don't like this pen. Let me grab a different pen. If you look at ancient depictions in art, they're almost always pictured in this one specific pose. First off, they're all naked. I'm not going to draw them naked because it's not that type of show. But there would be like, depending on the side of the statue or the art that you're standing on, there would be 2 figures with their back to you. So I'm going to let's draw Euphrosyne. She has her arm extended out like this. She's wearing a robe, so don't worry. I'm not going to do that. Then there is there's one in the middle who's facing towards us. And I'll make this one Aglaia. Aglaia is going to get special treatment today because these characters, unfortunately, are not super personified. I'll get to that. They're not one of those characters who have a huge body of myth. They appear a lot, especially in art, but they don't really have a lot of myths about them. And then on this side, we'll draw Thalia. It's an awful Thalia. But you know how it is, guys. You've been watching this, you know I mess up my drawings all the time, but that's okay. So this is a pose. If you ever, I drew half of it off the screen. I'm so sorry, everybody. This is what happens when I change my setup. So if you've ever gone into a museum, you'll see this statue a lot, where there's the three beautiful women, and like they're in this kind of intricate embrace, right? They're almost always pictured together. Again, Aglaia has a little bit of a life separate beyond this. I like to mention my sources here a lot. And as always, Hesiod comes before all else. He's kind of my main source for these things. He names them. He's where we get the names Aglaia, Euphrosyne, and Thalia. Now, let's go over what their names mean. Aglaia, it means like splendor or like glory, right? That's her right there. Euphrosyne means like good will, good cheer. Like you, just to be near her makes you happy. She's like a goddess of mirth, right? And then Thalia's name means festivity. Thalia shares her name with one of the Muses. Thalia is the muse of comedy. We're going to talk about the Muses tomorrow. Boy, that's going to be an episode where I just list off goddess names and what they mean forever. But I'm going to move this up a little bit so you can see them a little bit better. So they're kind of personified by their names. That kind of tells you what you need to know. She's very beautiful. She's good cheer. She's very festive. And they kind of bring that. And that was their roles. They were the goddesses of beauty and happiness. And so you might be asking, because I know we all like them, the gods, to have their very clear delineations of the things they're in charge of. Like, what makes them different from Aphrodite? She's the goddess of beauty. And that's true. And my take on this, Aphrodite is the goddess of beauty in the sense, in a way, Aphrodite is the goddess of life. Aphrodite creates love between people. And in that love, it's a generative power. Like the desire to create families and children, that kind of roots back to Aphrodite. The Fates, not the Fates, oh my goodness. The Charites, while they are goddesses of beauty, just like Aphrodite, her beauty is more in the desire, it creates desire. Theirs is more about beauty in when something's just great. When you're like, that's beautiful, that's a really nice day. And they are about adornments and making things beautiful too. Like that, they're literally if there was a goddess, if there are goddesses of makeup or jewelry, it would be them, right? But it's kind of a fine point, but I think you can get it. Aphrodite is a much more primal and powerful goddess. I mean, clearly she's an Olympian. In fact, as you know from listening to this, in my opinion, she's the most powerful Olympian because she has this power of love, of desire, of lust. And it could you could really push it. She could make anyone do anything. This isn't their thing. Their power is more when you have a really great day and it's been sunny and you saw your friends, you're and that was the Charites, right? I should also mention they might be pronounced the Charites. You could pronounce it either way. I'm gonna do Charites, but I mean Elia. I'm sorry, my pronunciations. There's different ways to say it. Even scholars don't agree on all these things. All right, so I feel like I want to draw better pictures of their faces. And I'll talk about them a little bit. So I'm gonna start with Euphrosyne, just because I've decided she's the oldest. I don't actually have any proof of this, just in my own headcanon. I know who the youngest is. It's Aglaia. But I don't know beyond. So Euphrosyne, she was the goddess of good cheer. And when I designed her, I wanted them all to be very beautiful, but I wanted them all to have very distinct attributes to distinguish them from Aphrodite, the goddess they are most commonly associated with. They are literally her handmaidens, and in art you will see them. They're often in conjunction with her, attending to her with her accoutrements of beauty. They hold her train. They're her devoted servants, which is important to note. That's kind of a real trait of these goddesses, is they're kind of almost like divine servants. This is probably why they don't have a lot of their own mythology. So I gave her long, kind of dirty blonde hair. She has what I could only describe as an extremely pleasant look on her face all the time. She is very beautiful, but she has this gentle smile. I don't think that she is anyone with who would show a lot of strong emotion, except for maybe a laugh, when she's having a good time. Because she's all about pleasance, right? That's her thing. Then there's Thalia. And Thalia, I made her a redhead. I also gave her kind of like, she has like a bang. She has her hair done up in like the bangs. She has her hair done up in this do. Honestly, like one of the designs for her, like one of the elements for her design, I kind of made her look a little bit like Scarlett Johansson, because Scarlett Johansson plays the Black Widow, whose name is Natasha, which is kind of like Natalia's. And I mean, that's information you didn't need to know. But she has red hair, and oof, I think I gave her blue eyes. She has brown eyes, and she has, I think it's blue, because Aphrodite has green eyes. I have to check. Maybe someone has my book. I've messed that up. I'm really messing up her drawings today. And finally is Aglaia. And Aglaia, I gave short, curly, well, not super short curly hair. She's the darkest complected of all of them. And as I hinted, she's kind of really the only one of them who has any sense of identity outside the group. Because I know you're going to want to ask, like, hey, who did they marry? Did they have kids? And I gotta say, I couldn't find any trace. Euphrosyne and Thalia just seemed to be so devoted to their jobs. Or if they did marry, if they took lovers, if they had children, I was unable to find myths that recorded it. She kind of off the bottom. But Aglaia plays a very interesting role. So, Hephaestus very famously was married off to Aphrodite. It's actually one of the first stories we have here. Zeus is extremely threatened by the appearance of this new goddess who could make literally anyone fall in love with anything. It's why Zeus has his back turned to her on the cover. Instead of being like, hey, how are you doing, like he normally does, he sees her as this threat to his rule. So he immediately marries her off to his ugliest and probably most harmless son, Hephaestus. Because like that'll keep her out of trouble. And it's a bad move in a lot of ways. First off, I'm a big fan of people being able to choose who they marry or whether they want to marry at all, right? So he kind of takes this from both of them. And Aphrodite, as the goddess of love, has a lot of love to give. And you can't really expect her to be tied down to just one person. Even though she really does end up being pretty like good couple with Ares, but she doesn't get to choose. She's hooked up with Hephaestus, and I'll just say, I mean, Hephaestus just can't handle her. She's too much. Hephaestus is a sweet guy, but he's, she probably wants to go out dancing or go to a nice restaurant or whatever, and he just always wants to be working, making stuff. And the things he makes her are beyond beauty. Like, that's the way Hephaestus... I always balk when people say he's the ugly god, because, I mean, first off, I've talked about this in the Hephaestus episode. I actually designed my Hephaestus. If he were to, like, stand up straight and, like, do his hair, he'd actually look pretty good. He's also a shape changer. Why is he ugly? He could look like anything. He could look like a bug if you wanted. I don't know why I'd want to look like a bug. But he expresses beauty in his creations. He has this ability to create things beyond any other gods. So he's always making her these beautiful gifts. And she does appreciate them. And honestly, I do feel like Aphrodite does love Hephaestus, or did Hephaestus in a way. But she loved Ares more. And I talk about this in at least a few of these episodes, where she has an affair with Ares. And then Helios, the sun, tells Hephaestus. And Hephaestus captures them in the act. And basically he makes this net that's made of molecule-thin chains of an unbreakable metal. So you can't see it, but you're caught in it. And this net drops down on them. He captures them together in her bed. And it's a huge embarrassment for them. And they get a divorce. It's like, what? I didn't know that was a thing back then. Sure enough, it was. They get divorced. Now, I always say Hesiod before all else, right? But you know what? The Iliad probably is a little bit older than the Odyssey. I mean, than Hesiod's Theogony, right? And what's so interesting is in the Iliad, they're already split up. It's this really early story. Hephaestus and Aphrodite are divorced. Hephaestus has a new bride. Now, in the Iliad, okay, we've talked about this before. Homer has weird genealogies. One of the reasons I don't use Homer as my main source most of the time is because he has weird ideas how the gods relate. And by weird, I'm sure they made sense for him. I think he was from Ionia. That was probably just the region there. But like the Hesiodic version of things, of the way the gods were related to each other, is just more well known. It's what most of Greece believed in, what mostly came down to us. So Hephaestus's wife in the Iliad is named Charis or Charis, which is just kind of a singular version of one of the Charites. So you're like, But Hesiod himself comes and says Charis is another name for Aglaia. So after he gets a divorce from her boss, her boss, or yeah, I guess so. She works for, I don't know if there's a salary or if there's benefits there. Hephaestus ends up marrying Aglaia, who is the youngest, as I mentioned, of the elder three Charites. I mentioned that because we're going to get into some more. And I know people have asked this before, and I know it's a source of great, and you can see in Megan's comic that she drew, how does Aphrodite feel about that? Importantly, also, how does Aglaia feel about that? How does Hephaestus feel about that? That's kind of like an interesting thing, right? And, I mean, does she stop being the, attendant to Aphrodite there? I will say this. If you do some digging in the artwork of that, you can find they were not just, the Charites were not just attendants to Aphrodite. They also were attendants to Hera. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it got a little awkward after that. She's like, you know what, I'm going to go move on to the Queen of the Gods, and, we have a much better relationship there, and whatever. I don't know. It's, it's a matter of speculation. Personally, because I was thinking about this, I'm like, I know people are going to ask me, and I should really form an opinion, and I realized I already had an opinion. I feel like all parties concerned were happier. I feel like Hephaestus was certainly incredibly angry when he first caught them cheating, but I don't think Hephaestus ever really wanted to be married to Aphrodite. She never clearly, he shows up and Zeus is like, marry her, and he's like, okay. She's not the type he'd go for. And so basically, if you think about it, Aphrodite, is just a different type of person, she has a much better match in Ares. She has a much better match in Hermes. She has a much better match in almost every other god on Olympus, right? But for Hephaestus, I think it's someone who's literally the goddess of adornment, of making beauty, of finding enjoyment and beauty and love in the small things. Hephaestus makes the small things. That's his job. He makes jewelry all day and things. And she's the goddess who's going to find the enjoyment in that. I do imagine, I feel like Aphrodite probably is annoyed, honestly. And I'm sure Aphrodite does little tiny things to make Aglaia's life hard. And maybe Aglaia doesn't hang out as much. Maybe Aglaia retires from being that at that point. In fact, in the Iliad, you do see a few scenes where she is called Charites, where, when Thetis comes and visits, in order to get, new armor built for Achilles, Aglaia is there in the palace of Hephaestus. So she's definitely not running around after Aphrodite. Aphrodite's running around with Ares. They're on different sides of the war. But I feel like there's probably a little bit of tension there. But, at the end of the day, I think Aphrodite's a lot happier without Hephaestus. I think Hephaestus is a lot happier without Aphrodite. I think Aglaia is somebody who really appreciates Hephaestus for what he does. And I think Ares doesn't care about anything except for killing people. So I think I got it all. All right. So, now this I took notes for because turns out also Aglaia had kids with Hephaestus, because people often ask and did Hephaestus and Aphrodite have kids? It depends. Some sources say Eros, but I think I've talked, maybe I did do an Eros episode, because I feel like I've talked at length. I'm pretty sure Eros is not the kid of Hephaestus. I've mentioned my other theories of who the dad is. In fact, in my book, I kind of leave it open. I throw out a few choices. They have 3 children. Four children. I'm sorry. There's Euclea, whose name is good reputation. Okay. There is Euthenia, whose name is I think Euthenia means gratitude or welcome, perhaps. Oh man, I'm gonna forget someone. There's Eupheme, whose name is acclaim or fame. And those are the 3 U's. And then there's the other one is it's like her name. It's Euphrosyne. And Euphrosyne is I have no idea what Euphrosyne means. Philo seems friendship. I don't know. But they are sometimes referred to as the younger Charites. And if you're wanting myths about them, there's not really any myths. They're kind of mentioned places. And there's if you go through sources, there are other Charites mentioned from time to time. I already talked about Charis, who some people don't feel as Aglaia, even though Hesiod specifically says, they're the same person. So I'm going to believe that. I feel like Homer just is like, oh, it's just he's just referring to a Charite individually. In fact, Pausanias engages in some speculation because it was viewed as so weird that Homer only talks about the one Charite. They're like, does he know about there being other Charites? And there's some hints. He mentions Charis as being the youngest of the original three. So you're like, okay, so he seems to know that there's more than that, right? But then there is a Charite named Pasithea or Pasitea. And she is specifically said to be one of the youngest Charites. And she comes up. So there's a very famous sequence in the Iliad where Hera is looking to get away with some stuff on the battlefield that she doesn't want Zeus being aware of. And she has a whole plan to seduce Zeus and have him go to sleep. But in order to make sure this really works really well, she actually gets Hypnos. You know Hypnos, right? Son of Nyx. We've talked about him, haven't done an episode, but we've talked about the Nyx episode, in the Eros episode, in the Nemesis episode. He's part of that whole other family line of gods, right? So she goes to Hypnos and she's like, look, I need your promise you're going to help me make Zeus go to sleep. He's like, you are nuts if you think I'm going to mess with Zeus, the most powerful, he's the king of the gods. He's going to be really mad if he finds I made him go to sleep. And she's like, all right, look, I'll handle the top stuff, but you do this, I will give you your hand. Well, actually, he says there's somebody he likes. He's like, I'll give you the hand in marriage of Pasithea. Now, Pasithea is mentioned as being one of the youngest of the Charites. She's also in some of the ideas. So there's different ideas of who the parents of the Charites are. I went with the Hesiotic version, right, where it's. Wait, did I actually say? I didn't. I skipped this over, didn't I? I'm looking at my notes here. Oh my gosh. They are the children of Zeus and Eurynome. Now, if you know the name Eurynome, she is in... Do I have it here? No. She makes an appearance in Hephaestus. Together with Thetis, she is an Oceanid. She is one of the goddesses who captures Hephaestus when he's thrown off Mount Olympus as a baby. And Zeus and her hook up. Eurynome's name is... I think it also means fame or goodwill or something, which is this whole idea. So they have these children who are the Charites. But there's an alternate thread that some other mythographers record, that the Charites are the children of Zeus and Hera. It would seem Homer is maybe of that version, because Hera is able to promise one of her daughters or granddaughters hand in marriage to Hypnos. And, pardon me, the name Pasitea, I found two different translations for it, and they both mean very different things. The one that seems to be very tied in with Homer's, and this one is, I'm not a fan of this one. It means acquired goddess. Like, she's someone who Hypnos acquired. And that seems pretty literal, right? It also seems like she's barely personified at all. She's just I own her now. That stinks. That's an awful thing. But there's another way that I've seen Pasitea translated, and this one's really interesting. It doesn't mean acquired in the sense of ownership. It means possessed in the sense of mental possession. And if you group her together with her husband Hypnos, who is the god of sleep, she might be a goddess of dreams, or interestingly, a goddess of hallucinations. Maybe even you ever do a thing you wake up and the dreams are continuing for a second? She might be that idea. And I like that one better because unlike all these other ones, she actually does play a very small mention in a myth I almost never mention because I've never read it because it's way too long. There was this guy Nonus, who wrote an epic poem, the longest epic poem there ever has been, called the Dionysiaca. And it's the story of Dionysus. Well, it starts off with the theogony and the birth of the gods, and some of it agrees with what went before and a lot doesn't. And it's Dionysus in his war against India, the country of India. And it's crazy long, and I don't know that anyone in the world's actually read it. I guess somebody has because it's been translated. But, I know she plays a small part in that where she makes someone go crazy. So I'm oh, so maybe that is the idea. Maybe she is a goddess of possession. And there's other, here and there's a few other names that are maybe not maybe treaties or maybe not. But we're just getting into it. It's really basically about these three. And I think, looking over my notes really quickly, I think that's pretty much it. I do want to kind of talk a little bit. So I want to circle back to something I said about the idea that they're almost like servants. And it's the joy and the grace and the beauty of finding the things in life that make you happy, right? And it makes a lot of sense to me how Aglaia ends up being, I'm going to look this up, Aglaia ends up being the wife of Hephaestus. Because the Graces, although they are incredibly beautiful and incredibly graceful, and to be around them is joy, they tend to use their abilities in lending that grace and joy to others, right? And Hephaestus, in his own way, he does the same thing. Like I said, I always say he expresses his beauty in that he creates these objects of beauty, these objects that he gives away or that people give away. So they both have this ability to create beauty and love and mirth and glory, and they hand it away. They give it to others. And at the end, this just occurred to me. Oh my God, their names are the Charites. It's like charity. Oh my gosh, I never thought. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. They are gods, they are goddesses who give away their gifts. And that's kind of beautiful, I think. So I think that's pretty much my lecture today for the Charites. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to say a lot because you'll notice, man, I barely talk. They don't have myths, really. They appear in art. They do things here and there, but they don't really have a lot of stories where they are, like, there's no story. It's like, oh, Euphrosyne saw a pig robbing a bank. And, that would be awesome. I would love to read that story, but it doesn't exist. Or if it did, it hasn't been recorded to us. So at this point, I like to throw it open for Q&A. I'll see if anybody's asked some stuff, but this is how it always goes. We ask for some questions and stuff. Uh-oh, someone's confused. Uh-oh. Oh, I got it. Yes, wide ruling. That's what eurynomy means. Yes, thank you. Yuri, of course, means wide. We've talked about like uriality, like wide stepping. Thank you, T. Mackey. Wow, somebody was just typing a bunch of letters. Scroll up, Sparksfly says. Oh, how far do I have to scroll up? If you asked a question and I missed it, like, please type it again or just cut and paste it. I know that's a pain, but like there's it looks like a lot of people just kind of spammed it today. Yeah, wow. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions yet, so I'm going to scroll back down. If I don't see any questions, I might just cut it short. Do you listen to anything while working? Yes, I do. Depends on the stage. When I'm writing, I listen to music. And I have like a Spotify account where I've got a bunch of liked songs. But sometimes you'll see a movie and there's like a certain song that plays in that scene, in a specific scene, and that really embodies it. Sometimes I will have a scene of music like that in my head. So sometimes when I'm writing, I'll listen to the same song over and over and over and over and over again. It could be kind of maddening. If you see a lot of times I'll post photos during the day where I'm wearing headphones, I wear headphones when I listen to my music so I don't drive my neighbors crazy because I live in New York City and I'm close to my neighbors, they right through the walls. Sometimes when I'm doing finishes, drawing, like if I've already worked at all the story beats and the layouts and I'm just drawing is very automatic for me. Sometimes I'm doing that, I'll listen to podcasts. Yesterday I was drawing finishes, and I was listening to podcasts while I worked on it. Sometimes, not often, I don't listen to anything at all, but sometimes I do, especially when I'm writing. Sometimes when I'm writing, even music is too distracting. It can be hard to get into the writing mindset. Let's see. Now we have all the questions. Oh, man. T. Mackey, did you intentionally conceive them to oppose the fates as narrators? Do you mean the Charites, like how they would have a different viewpoint? I'm not sure. Come back with me with more information. I'd like to ask that one. Do many of the gods have attendants, asks Renka. That's a good question. Yeah, I think so. So Aphrodite has these guys. Additionally, she seems to share them with Hera. Or sometimes you see the younger Charites, who, as I mentioned, are maybe Hera's kids. You see them as her attendants. You will see with Artemis, she has her whole the Oceanides and nymphs that are her hunting mates. Apollo, you could make the case that the Muses are his attendants, though that seems to make them a bit more subservient than I think they would choose to view themselves. Who else? Let me look at my poster. Ares, you could argue Deimos and Phobos are. They kind of accompany him into battle. I think you see this a lot, and maybe attendance isn't always the word. Maybe it's just the Olympians control huge swaths of creation, right? And there's a lot of smaller subordinate roles to be had there, where they fall under the auspices of that particular Olympian. So you see that a lot. And then sometimes it's even like somebody like Dionysus, he has his whole retinue of like Meneids and satyrs and like just drunk people. Like, do those count as attendants? I kind of would count them. Let's see. Do the ancient Greeks have any elves or elf-type characters? By elves or elves, I'm going to assume you mean like a hidden race of humanoid people. Are we talking smaller? Or are we talking like more highly evolved? Like because like, you know, Tolkien has his vision of the elves where they're like closer and spiritual and they're like better than people in every single way. But then if you look at like actual old English mythology, elves tend to be these kind of, they're the Fae. Oh, by the way, the Fae, the fairies, all that stuff comes from the Fates. That's like derived from that. I should have mentioned that on Monday. Just add that chunk on Monday. But sometimes the elves are actually viewed as these like diminutive, like little prankster type characters. And I think you can make an argument that there are some similar beings, but I think you're really kind of, I personally, as much as I love the whole concept of fairies and stuff, and I do, I shall do an episode on fairies, even though it's nothing to do with Greek mythology, really. Like, I feel like you'd be really shoving a square peg in a round hole to make that idea that they had, like, that, like, because they definitely viewed as mythological beings of different types, satyrs, centaurs, you know, just all the weird mythological races that are recorded, like, but I don't know if there's anything quite like that idea of the elf. Maybe nymphs, you could argue, because elves have a long connection with like the wilderness, and nymphs were like connected with trees very specifically. That's possible. I think the idea, so the Greek gods is an older concept than what we think of as elves and fairies, right? And there's a whole theory that the elves and fairies, that's like, it's basically mythology of Europe that just kind of like, especially in the advent of Christianity, got kind of, the gods got downgraded into these mysterious beings. So I feel like you could maybe say something like the nymph would eventually become something like an elf, but like it's kind of at a different stage. I don't know. I hope I answered it well. Okay. So T. Mackey's question was, and specifically in Athena, how I had the Fates as the narrators, and then in Aphrodite, I have the Charites, and how there's like there's definitely Athena and Aphrodite represent very different aspects of the world. And did I think about having the Charites and the Fates kind of oppose each other? I would say it was less of an opposition. I talked about in the episode where I talked about the Moirae, the Fates, about why the various reasons I chose the Fates to do that. And it was the same idea where like there was just a lot of reasons. I wanted to cover the Charites because even though they don't appear a lot in mythology, they were very important goddesses. And they were evoked a lot in religion and in like the world. So I wanted to have them cover, and it makes just the most sense to have them cover. But it is nice that there's a little bit of a diametrical opposed, like they like, hey, look at these different groupings of three goddesses. Like three of them are super gorgeous and fashion plates, and three of them wear like, you know, potato sacks all the time. Who do you think is the stupidest god? Little Cyril's trying to get me killed because I'll say this and then divine retribution. Looking at my poster right now, but I think I've said this before, and okay, we could probably say it's Eris, right? Because she's the troublemaker, and some of her schemes are pretty harebrained. Although, you know, the fairest one of all thing, that was pretty clever. I normally say it's Apollo. And it's not that I think Apollo's really dumb. I think Apollo is blinded sometimes by his own security and by his ego. And you could see there's a lot of, I mean, the biggest blow against him, he was literally outsmarted by a one-day-old baby. Multiple times. So, yeah, that's not great. I mean, the baby was Hermes. Baby was super smart. He was already full intelligence, presumably. But I think Apollo, there's a certain thickness to Apollo. And that I do think he's brilliant. He's a brilliant musician. He's able to create all this amazing stuff. But I think I talked about this in the Apollo episode, his life insecurities based on his childhood. And just his role in the cosmos, really. And I think it kind of gives him a big blind spot where he is capable of doing some truly boneheaded things. Do you think... Oh, wow. This is a good question. One that I really haven't explored much. Do you think Metis' sisters are mad at Zeus for what he did to her? So Metis was the oldest of the Oceanides, right? In fact, who we talked about today, Eurynomy, she's also one of the Oceanides. I think she's like the third oldest. I think she actually appears in Zeus. I drew the first... and that's just a detail nobody needs to know. And Zeus did, of course, eat their sister. And she lives only as a being of thought from there on. I think they would be extraordinarily mad if they knew exactly what happened. But my own personal take on this, which I've shared elsewhere, maybe here, I think people know Metis is gone. I think they suspect Zeus had something to do with it, but they don't really know what happened. So I think there's probably some bad will there for sure. They're just like, you would look at him with like some distaste, like, you were married to our sister and we haven't seen our sister for like 1,000 years and that's just weird. Did I learn Greek during my trip to Greece, and what parts of Greece did you visit? This is from Elia. So no, I do not know Greek. I can not even pronounce it that great. Greek is hard. I'm much better with Latin and Italian. It comes down to alphabets, honestly, because the Greek alphabet's a totally different alphabet. Places I visited in Greece. I was in Athens, I was in Rhodes, I was in Crete, I was in Mykonos, I was in... what is it? It used to be called Thera. It's the one that blew up. It's like, oh my god, I'm blanking on its name. I was on a lot of the islands. You know where I've never been, though? I've actually never been up to Olympus. And I want to go back to Greece so I could go see more of the mainland stuff. I did a lot of island hopping in Athens and a few other places on the mainland, but I need to see more of the mainland. But unfortunately, I never learned Greece. I spent a lot more time going through Italy than I've ever done Greece, unfortunately. I know this is off topic, but I can't help it. Could I ask if we have an estimated launch date for Dionysus? I would love to give you one, but I would be speaking entirely off the top of my head. I can actually do some research and see that. I know my publisher would probably like to know that too, but I'm still working on the book, so you got to figure it's probably at least a year out. I know that's a bummer. Nobody wants to hear that. Have I ever listened to Let's Talk About Myths Baby podcast? No. I'm going to look that up, though. Boy, that's a great title. Can I do an episode about Deimos and Phobos? So, I might cover them. Maybe I'll do like a general episode where I do like the idea of attendance of gods. Because Deimos and Phobos, they suffer from the same problem as these guys, but worse. In that Deimos and Phobos don't really have myths. And at least they are clearly goddesses. Deimos and Phobos, I think I talked about this when I talked about Ares. You could make an argument that they're barely personified. Their names mean like, people always say it's fear and panic, but it's not really panic. It's more like terror, like fear and terror. And that's all they are, is they're fear and terror. They don't really have personalities, or even, as you see the way I draw them in Ares, I don't really give them even physical forms. They're personified concepts, which you see a lot of times in Greek mythology, especially in plays where there will be characters. I always use this as the example in Prometheus Bound, when Prometheus is being bounded, nailed to the mountain in the Caucasus by Hephaestus. Hephaestus is being attended. Oh, there's another attendant by two beings called Kratos and Ba, which just mean force and power, and they talk to Hephaestus. So Hephaestus has someone to talk to, so he's not just like talking to the dude he's nailing there. But they don't really seem to be gods as much as they're just personifications of concepts. I feel like Deimos and Phobos kind of fall into that same thing. Mr. Wizard Wannabe's dropping some information about the elves in Tolkien. The Tolkien elves come from the Aphir, the light elves from Norse myths. You know what actually maybe something like the idea, because they are these ascended beings who like come from across the sea, maybe the idea that's closest to the elves in Greek mythology, maybe it's like the Hyperboreans, where they come from like this mystical land up north that's like sacred to Apollo and everyone's better and cooler. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a real direct match. I think it's definitely, there's gulfs of time separating the two concepts, but I could see how the one idea could have evolved into the other. Okay. Someone's like, don't say Ares. He's not dumb, but he's definitely not a thinker in regards to the smartest. Yeah, I don't think Ares is that dumb. I think he's rash. I think Ares is probably that guy who like gets really upset and just sees red and like kind of loses himself. Apollo, I think he's got a little bit. He's a thicker dude. If it came down to one of the two outsmarting each other, I would definitely put my money on Ares. What if they did? Oh, what if they did know she was eaten by Zeus? If the Oceanides knew for sure that Zeus ate their sister, they would be super duper mad, and they'd be like, "How could you do that? Like, my sister literally helped your brothers and sisters were eaten by your dad. Do you not see the irony in this?" I feel like saying that to Zeus, but Zeus would blow me up with the lightning bolt. If they teamed up, could they beat him? If all the Oceanides teamed up to fight Zeus, could they beat him? Ooh, I mean, depending on the source, there's either 50 Oceanides or 100. That's a lot. But I definitely feel like they're not on the same level of power as Zeus. And Zeus has the shape-shifting thing, which they really don't have, which I think would really push him over the edge. Plus, he could throw lightning bolts. I don't know. That's a challenging one. I mean, 50 is a lot, Remember there used to be the thing on the internet would be like, how many 6-year-olds could you fight in a fight? It was like this thing you typed in stuff like how high you could kick. It was monstrous. It was awful. But like, they should do one for Zeus. How many Oceanides could you defeat in a fight? And it's like, ooh, I don't know. Ooh, good point. Helios must know what happened between Metis and Zeus, but no one dared ask. I feel like you're probably right, guys. I feel like it's probably a big secret. I mean, a big open secret. Everyone's like, yeah, we know. We know what happened to Metis. Because they know they're dealing with immortals. They know she didn't die. Like, she has to be somewhere, right? And they figure they probably don't necessarily know he ate her. But they know he did something. But you're right, especially the way I depict it happens right out in the open during the sunny day. So Helios saw it all. He's like, oh, that's awful. Ilia's name is from Ilia Beach in Mykonos. I think Ilia's name clearly Greek. That's awesome. I've been to Ilia Beach. I think, well, we only have 3 minutes left. And so I think I'm going to have to wrap this up. There was one last question, which this is kind of geeky, but I like it. What's your favorite version on Wonder Woman's Greek gods? The Wolfman Perez, which is the post-crisis version, or Azarello Chang, the New 52? Wow. Okay, we're getting into some geeky stuff here. I think I grew up more with the Wolfman Perez version. This was like during the 80s, and they were, for the most part, more accurate to like with the original conceptions of the Greek myths. The Azrael Chang versions were pretty neat. I didn't love that Hermes was like a weird bird dude, but I really liked the take on Ares as war, where he was like this old guy with the bloodstained pants and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. There's greater sophistication in the Azarello Chang storytelling too, and also I'm not the biggest fan of Marv Wolfman's writing. I know he's amazing, he's done great stuff, but his stuff just hasn't aged as well for me as some of the other comics creators. So I'm going to come down actually, I guess, in Azarello Chang. So everybody, I have to wrap this up because the countdown has just begun for this episode to cut off. If you want to see this episode again or catch an episode you missed, please tune into my YouTube. youtube.com/user George Olympians. If you want to send me anything, mail, drawings, whatever, please send it to my email at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. And otherwise, I will see you all on Friday when we are going to be exploring the last of the Groups of Goddesses weeks. We're going to be tackling the Muses, the Mosaic. There's a lot of them. And they actually do have some mythology too. So I don't know how I'm going to fit all this in, because I'm going to have to go over a lot more people than just these three and their stories about them. So anyway, I hope I'll see you all on Friday. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.